What's up guys, welcome back. I was just out on the bike today and I come across this little spot and I thought it was perfect for setting up my hammock, have a little chill out session. So today I'm going to do a video on how I set up my hammock. Now there's a lot of speculation out there, should do it this way, should do it that way. Everyone does it differently. I'm going to show you how I do it. It's my favourite method, it's what I use every time, tried and tested. So let's get cracking. This is what I use. Tiny little nylon hammock. It's really light, fits in this tiny little bag. Comes with a couple of little tree straps. They're not as wide as I normally like my tree straps, and I do use thicker tree straps if I've got a longer distance to cover. These two trees that I'm using today, they're quite close together and they're pretty hardy trees, so I'm going to be fine with these tree straps. They're about, I think, 13mm wide. They don't actually do any damage, but I know there's a lot of people out there that are scared of hurting the trees, but these definitely won't. Just a quick one. The first thing you need to do when you find where you're going to put your hammock is look up, because the last thing you want to do is be laying there trying to get a good night's kip and have a branch fall on your head. They'll do you some pretty decent damage, so just look up, look for any dead branches or anything that looks like that ain't that good. If it ain't, find a different spot, because trust me, it's not worth it. Right, so I'm just gonna lay my hammock out. The ground's nice and dry, so I haven't got to worry about stuff like that. I'm just gonna put it down on the ground and measure my distances, and I'll show you how we set it up. Okay, so what I tend to go for is I try to set my loops around the tree at about the top of my head, and I go for my hammock around at my waist. And then what I have is I've got a line on my hammock which shows me exactly how tight it needs to be, lets me set my angles, but we'll run through that in a sec. So I'll just get the first side tied up. Okay, there's one end tied up. You always want to do one end first. And when you're doing this, bear in mind, I use my head, so I set my foot end, what's going to be my foot end, I tie it level with the top of my head. And then my head end, I tie level with the bottom of my chin. I find if you have your foot end slightly higher, it makes laying flat and getting comfortable that little bit easier. But because I've got such a massive tree here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of my thicker straps around the tree first, and then I'm going to tie onto that. So in my hammock kit, these bigger straps that I talk about, they're old ratchet straps that are no good to me anymore. They're just short ones, and I just tie a bowline on one end and I have the hook on the other end. And then if I've got massive trees, I can double a couple of these up, get round the tree, gives me a nice grab for my other strap. So I'll chuck that round. I can feed the hook through the bowline. And that's nice and tight like that. This other end's really quite simple. All I do if I'm using a hook, it's exactly the same as if I'm using a hook or a tree. You either go around the tree or through the hook. I just come through like this. Until my hammock's up to where I want it. Then I'll come round my carabiner at the bottom. And that way I can easily adjust it if I need to. And then I come all the way round twice. Now I'll just grab my tail end, back through here, under these two loops, and just like that, that cinches up on itself. Perfect. Now what we've got is a lot of sag in the hammock, which for me personally, that's how I like it. A lot of people like it quite flat, some people like it really sagged, and some people like it somewhere in between. Now, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's all down to preference really. You just got to try it and see what you like. I've tried it all kinds of ways and this is my favourite. I find this really helps me to sleep flat. I'm a side sleeper, so for me this is easier. I'll show you how I lay when I lay in it, and you might get the idea of why I like a bit more sag. What you want to do, you don't want to lay tree to tree, so you don't want to lay in the same direction as your ridgeline or what your hammock is hanging. You want to try and shimmy round a little bit. So for me, my feet go to the left, my head goes to the right, and that way I'm pretty flat. Still got a bit of a curve, but generally I'm pretty flat, and that's how I like it. And I sleep on my side as well, so when I'm on my side I am pretty flat when I'm in there. The only other thing I want to show you today is this line I have here. This is what guides me for my tension. I'll just give you a quick look. So this line I have here, all I have is a bow line on each end, just looped over here, so I can take it on and off if I want to. Once I've set my tarp up, sometimes I might take it off if I'm not staying for the night. This serves a couple of purposes. One thing, if you look now, it's nice and loose. When I sit in the hammock, this then takes up a lot of tension. See that? That's really quite tight. Now, you want this to be able to move between your fingers like this. You want to be able to pinch it and move it. But what you don't want to be able to do is, you don't want it loose, but you don't want it so tight that you can't bend it. So I can pinch that between my fingers and it's cool. What that means is this line is tight, which has taken out a bit of tension of my hammock, so I'm not overly taut on the ends of my hammock, which means I'm not going to rip it and I'm not going to fall to the ground when I'm trying to go to sleep. So this is always a good addition when you're new to hammocks. It's a really good way to sort of get that guide in as to whether you're getting it right or not. This line that we've just spoke about over the top of the hammock, this little tensioner guide, rough starting point for making your own one of these is lay your hammock out on the floor, measure the length to the millimetre. That isn't including the loops that come fixed on your hammock, by the way. That is the total length of the material of your hammock. And then 83% of that, so if you're on a calculator, multiply it by 0.83 and that will give you 83%, which is the length that you want in between your two loops. Just like that. And try that. Have a look. If it doesn't look like you're setting your hammock out right, you might have to alter it a little bit. If you do one end adjustable to start with, perfect, because then you can just tweak it while you're out, get it right, get comfy in it, and then set it properly. And that's about it for how to set up your hammock. Thanks for coming along, guys. This has been how I set up my hammock. Obviously there's a lot of people out there that probably do it differently, and that's fine. I do it differently to people that I've learnt things from, and everyone's got their own ways. everyone likes their own methods. This is mine. I find this easy, convenient, and it works for me. It might not work for you, but I'm sure it probably will. And you know, if you can take away something from this video, then happy days, everyone's a winner. If there's anything you'd do differently, or maybe you think, you know what, Lee, you'd be far better off doing it like this, let me know. Stick it in a comment down below. I won't be offended. If you think you've got something from it, then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more stuff like this, you know, we're gaining subs every day, which is absolutely beautiful, and we really appreciate everyone that does subscribe, everyone that comments and, you know, does their bit in the To The Wild community. It's really brilliant to see people coming along and following more and more. Thanks again. See you on the next one.